right. We have quite a few folks coming on. It looks like we're going to have, if everybody comes who said they were coming, we're going to have close to 85, 90 people here. What I do hope folks have is this booklet, because we put the booklet together so that we could really share out a little more in depth this idea of brain abilities and disability, and how we use what people are able to do to help us help. And we have to notice what they're able to do and pick up on where they are challenged so that we're going to be able to do something. And so this workbook was designed to dig in deeper into this gem state model. And so we have our sapphire, diamond, emerald, amber, ruby, and pearl. And we today are going to focus on some specifics, because there's a lot in here and we get that, but we're going to turn for just a few seconds. I'm going to have you turn and take a look at the page 11. So we're going to start with page 11. And particularly, we're going to focus in on visual. We're going to start with visual, what you can see, what they might be seeing. So we're going to take a look right now. I'm going to be providing you with some videos to help you out. And I want you to look across this, where we go from a 25-year-old to a 75-year-old to early signs of dementia or a stressed out human being with tunnel vision, to someone with binocular vision, but able to use binoculars, but it's going to be task or social. And then what we're going to go to is trying to adjust the binoculars to figure things out, because I'm having trouble with object recognition. And then I'm going to be using my fingers and my hands to figure out what I saw and what I do with what I see. Then we're going to have monocular, and finally monocular off and on. And I'm going to let you take a look at that. Now that's the basics. Now let us turn then to, and so this is how I'm using my workbook. I'm going over, okay, so general visual field, that's one aspect of vision. But now what I want to do is turn to page 13. And I'm going to pay a little more attention, because there's more verbiage here. There's more words here. And I'm going to give you two gems to take a look at. I want you to take a look at the amber and the ruby information. Amber information and ruby information. And I'm going to show you a video clip, no sound. And I particularly want you to pay attention to the woman in the foreground, the woman who's in the front of the video first. And as you watch her and you observe not only what she seems to be seeing, you're watching her hopefully with tunnel vision, so that you're really paying attention to her in the setting that she's in, not just her so tightly, not monocular and not with binoculars. I want you to notice her in her environment. And then you're going to also pay attention in a few seconds to her sensory motor connection to her vision. Because with ruby and amber, we're looking at how the eyes drive the body. And so your workbook is going to help you figure out, does the person accurately reach for and then manipulate things, often with both hands or with some skill. Now, what they do with the thing might be interesting. So I have this thing, which some of you might recognize. All that tastes like shit. Now, what did you notice I did visually and sensory motor wise with it?
Oh. Go ahead and throw your answers in the chat. You guys are great with the chat already. So they're saying she touched and manipulated it. You
Which
use your
fingers?
senses.
Okay, which fingers?
Skill, they're saying. They're noticing
Ah,
skill.
I'm using all three of them. How many hands?
2, they're getting it. Yep.
Okay, so
Both.
it's a bilateral. I'm doing one thing with one hand, one with the other. Did I skillfully get this little tag and bring it up? And then what do you notice I do? I do something with it, and where do I bring it out to?
About 18 inches.
About 18 inches. So you want to realize I'm about 18 inches here, and I'm going to put it out at 18 inches to investigate it. And if I want to investigate it down here, you'll notice that my neck and shoulders I'll tip down to see what it is. But I'm messing with it. Now, I'm trying not to be quite too messy, but what might I do at this moment with it? Skillfully pull it apart because I'm so curious about it. And as I'm doing this, where are my eyes focused? Absolutely focused. So what I could totally miss is if some of it drops on the floor. Not noticing that at all because I'm really involved in this. It's warm, but it doesn't taste that good. So when it comes to sensory motor, what sensory motor am I most interested in? Am I interested in taste?
No, but somebody did say they explored briefly visually and then tactile, bilateral.
Yeah, it's always going to be vision first. Am I interested? Then it's going to be tactile. And then if it's curious enough, I will want to put it in here to see what it feels, and tastes like. But then I'll want to bring it back out and look at it again. If it didn't do what I thought it was, because what color was that little tag?
Yellow.
Yeah. And so it caught my eye and I'm thinking, ooh, it'll taste like lemon or it'll be like chewing gum or something like that. And then it was like, well, crap, that isn't what it is. What the heck? And yet I don't give it up right away. I do it a couple of times to confirm, no, that's no good. And then I get rid of it because it's not what I want. Enough, gone. So now what we're going to do is take a look at a video. Let's see if you can use this same information that you have in the workbook and look at this lady and see if she's like me or not quite like me. Let's
Oh,
take a look.
Kibra.
Yeah.
Would you rather at this point they're looking on page 13
Ooh,
or back at the chart on page 11?
actually, well, because I want them to look at the sensory motor in addition, I'm actually thinking I want them to remember what was on page 11, what we did with page 13, and now look at page 12. Looking more at body skills. Okay, so looking more at the person's body skills. And the bottom of 11, dexterity skills. You could certainly do that. I don't know who broke the page right there.
I think you can blame me on that one.
Oh, Beth. Oh, it was you. Good. Good to know. All right, here we go. All right. There will be no sound. Before you start getting upset, there is no sound because we're working on vision and movement. And the person I want you to watch is the white-haired lady. So before we even get started, take a look at her. So you're using your vision to look at her. Now look at her plate. Look at her glass. Look at her chair. Look at her utensils. And now look at the gentleman further away from her. And I will give you one piece of information, which is they have both been at this table for the same length of time. And they have both had their food for the same length of time. Little background info. Okay, you ready? We'll go. So I'm going to pause. What have you noticed so far? Now you can see this gentleman's plate a little bit more. And you can see a little more of her plus me. So what are you noticing? What have you picked up on so far, vision-wise and movement-wise?
Atipa Gina said she's using her right hand only.
Okay, right hand. What is she doing with the left? Which is sort of interesting. What's happening with that left hand?
She's stabilizing herself against her body across her chest, and it's closed.
Yeah, so she seems to be using that left hand to create a sense of stability or something. Something's going on with that left hand. So what else did you notice about her? That's good. Those are good observations.
Somebody said she was bringing her hand and food accurately to her mouth.
She's getting to her mouth when she does her hand thing. What do you notice about her fingers when she's doing it? Let's just take a look at her fingers again. Watch her fingers moving. And look at her eyes. Watch her visual regard. It'll take her a second to get going here.
So people are thinking it seems pretty tunneled. They're thinking maybe the drink is outside of her field of vision.
So maybe if she's not noticing it, maybe she's not picking up on it after all.
So Rachel, tell me a little bit about some of the other things you noticed as you're reading down the chat that were popping out.
People have noticed about her picking at the biscuit and not picking the whole thing. So there's a pinching motion to it.
Yeah, and if you're more kinesthetic, or if you're more visual, close your eyes and picture her hand. Do with your hand, or picture her actual hand motions in your vision, because there's a difference between this pincher, and this pincher. So I'm curious, when she was pinching, how was she pinching? Was she pinching with just the thumb and her hand was closed, with 3 fingers or 2 fingers?
So they're saying the index finger and the thumb.
Yeah, nice. She wasn't quite at this level, was she? She was more here. She had some more skill, didn't she? Nice pickup. There's a difference, isn't there?
So what is she doing with her hand now? Where's that right hand now?
She made a motion, guys. Remember that? After she got it from her, and she's wiping it off under the table at first. And then she goes to her.
Yeah, what does she have right there on the tabletop? It's that thing under the silverware.
A napkin?
A napkin. Is she recognizing a napkin as a napkin?
No.
Is she making any attempt to use the napkin?
No.
Huh. How about any attempt to use the silverware?
No.
How about any attempt to eat anything else on the plate other than the biscuit that's right in the front of her?
Yeah, people were wondering if once she saw the biscuit, if that's the only thing she really saw.
Oh, so all the other stuff on her plate, she's not touching any of it. She's not exploring any of it. Only this biscuit.
We must have some therapists out there, Teepa, because a couple of them wondered about whether or not they'd actually be able to see it. Could she see a white table, white plate, white napkin, and white placemat?
So do we think we might have potentially some issues with figure ground and object recognition? Also, how many of you are noticing how long it's taking her to chew? And did you actually see a swallow at all? Or is she just chewing and chewing and chewing? Now, she's talking to me. I'm talking to her. What is she looking at, though? Okay, so let's go from here. this out. There we go. Does she make eye contact with me?
No, doesn't look like it.
You see any? Oh, now there was some head movement. Okay, so what happened with her fingers? Like, let's look at the chart and go back to hand dexterity. Page 11. Look at hand dexterity on page 11. What do you notice about her difficulty? I'm presenting the sandwich. Does she change her hand position to make it work better with a sandwich? There's a little startle. Nice work, Teepa.
Yeah, they're starting to pick up that not as many no's coming through, a few yeses, but they're seeing there's not using a ton of skill with her fingers. She didn't change, but she did roll her wrist out. There's a little bit.
She did turn her hand a little bit. What did you see the bigger skill? Where did she show the greater adaptation to the large thing? I'm helping a little bit here.
She opened her mouth
She
wider.
opened her mouth wider. She finally opened her mouth wider instead of this little nibbling thing she's been doing. So far, I'm curious as to what you folks are thinking her gem state is. Amber or ruby? What are y'all thinking? I'm going to pause because here's our next lady. But what did y'all decide on her?
Tifa is pretty mixed. We're getting lots of ambers and we're getting lots of rubies.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, the difference between the amber and the ruby. Did you see any skilled tool use at all? Did she use any tools at all? Who used tools? Fairly successfully, might I add.
Good job, Teepa.
Thanks, no problem. Did she do anything, even when I put the napkin and messed with the napkin around her, did she use her left hand or even her right hand to do anything with that napkin? If she were in an amber state, what might we expect her to do with me messing around with putting a napkin right there? Probably let go of the biscuit and like, what the heck are you doing? Because you saw her startle a little bit, but the only startle she gave me was some head movement. She didn't do anything with her hand because her hand was already busy doing the biscuit, and she can't change gears. She can't change gears. Did she turn her head on her body to look at me and talk to me? She's a single unit. So if we look on that next page and we go over there, we're going to see she is more gross motor. She really is whole body, not segmental. And what is she even using? You all even told me she's using her left arm to stabilize even this movement. And when she sat in the chair, she moved her eyes a little bit and maybe her head up and down a little bit, but not a lot of movement. Wow. So yeah, Beth.
I was wondering if folks saw anything with her eyebrows where she tried to do something with her gaze when Teepa, you started talking. I was wondering if anybody picked that up because a couple of people did pick up the neck movement.
Yeah. So did she try to give me some facial expression?
A little.
Let me, I'll show it to you again. Let me see if I can bring you guys over here and show you again.
As you're pulling that up, I will say somebody's realizing there's a lot of little observational skills to really determine what is functional.
Exactly. And so what that tells me is as I watch her here and she gets going again, take a second for the video to click in here, hopefully. Hope it's going to do what it has been doing, which is catching up. 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, 1,005, 1,000.
Even another thing that people were picking up on was the idea of her chewing, but in the front part of her mouth. And so a lot of people picked up on that.
A lot of doing nipping, little nipping motions on the front, but not really being able to, do a whole lot more than that. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not going to play forward now. I have to start it over again. So frustrating. How about we go to the Ruby part of the book, which is on page 32, 33. And I would like for you to look at common Ruby issues and tell me what kind of issues you think my friend Susie might have. Good question, Marianne. And the answer is yes, because they nip it off, but then they chew and chew. It's called actually munching. As they get to this part and you keep munching and you keep munching and you keep munching. So she and Frank had both been at the table the same length of time. What did you notice about Frank's plate? It was pretty much empty. He was not a juice drinker. Guess what Frank likes for breakfast? Guess what Frank likes for breakfast? Guess what Frank doesn't get for breakfast, because this particular facility is concerned that even decaf coffee could have caffeine in it. This was 20 years ago. This was 20 years ago. I will say that they were really trying to do juice, but juice back 20 years ago was just sugar water with flavoring. But that was the real thinking was, and they give them the great big plastic glasses, and that was how much juice they got in the glass. So nobody was drinking the juice in the great big plastic glasses. With Susie, how difficult do you think it would have been for her to pick up the great big plastic glass, hold on to it, and then drink? How much would she have to tip the glass to get it up to her mouth? And if she tips her head back, it increases the risk of opening the airway. So this observation, what's nice about observing in a group is that you get a chance to actually see just not one person, but multiple folks. So let's take a look. Any other questions before I move on? Because we do want to use the book. As you looked at the common Ruby issues, what kind of things are you concerned about? Having seen her, recognize her as a Ruby, what else does this tell you you might want to go take a look at? What are you thinking?
You're talking about activities or places where we think there's going to be issues. So people are saying safety.
Okay, what kind of safety issues are you worried about? If she's using her arm to stabilize herself in a seated position, eating breakfast, what are you thinking about safety issues? What is a huge safety issue for Rubies?
Now it's coming in, Tiba.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so, okay. So safe mobility, intake.
People also mention skin tear, skin breakdown, hydration, choking.
Cool. Oh, now do you see how you might be able to use this page now that you've described and you think you might be looking at Ruby? Now it allows you to go take a step back and it's like, wow, okay, so these are things I need to be tuned into. If she's holding her arms that tight, what do you think that says about her peri area? Is she at risk for contractures?
Yep.
Is she somebody who's going to get up and wonder, though? Do you
And
feel like she's
Perry,
a risk of a wanderer?
yeah, and Perry folks were talking about basically the front bum.
Where you pee, guys. Where the
Thank you.
pee
I was
comes out.
like, what's the word I could use instead of Perry? Thank you.
Privates. Privates. You could say privates. That left arm is up really pretty high, huh? Yeah, there's a lot of tension there. So she's the kind of person I'm wondering what's going on with her left hand. Does she use her left hand? Can she use the left? It might make me wonder what's going on the left side of her body. I want to see what happens. Is she going to be okay standing? She going to weight distribute? She going to be able to use both hands to do anything else? So I now have some opportunities to explore other possibilities. Now, I had you look at Amber, right? Okay, now I'm going to give you another person to look at. So you'll want to keep looking, but go back to our vision and go back to sensory motor, because there's no sound here because I don't want to be reliant on audio. Okay, so this is a different lady. What do you already see that's a little different about her? What are you noticing?
So she's doing stuff with utensils.
Her first interest, although she's looking at the food, is utensils. So she's looking at the utensils, and which hand still?
The right hand.
Right hand. What are you still noticing about these elbows?
They're close in.
They're in close to the trunk. What do you notice about her left hand, though?
It's ready.
At least it's out. Okay, so let's see what she's doing. Watch her vision and her eyes are clearly directed more to the left or more to the right here. She's even got her head tipped.
Right.
Yeah, so let's see what she does now. Okay, she got the spoon and so what do you notice about the spoon placement in her right hand? What are you noticing there? Does she have it accurate? Is that how a mature hand holds a spoon?
No, it's just between the first two fingers. It's not quite there. It's definitely got a little bit more skill, she's saying, and it may fall off.
It's a little more skilled, but not quite like you might hope it would be. I'm trying to open a drawer here that has gotten stuck. Huh.
Well, somebody even suggested, Tipa, that she may actually end up eating with her left hand because the spoon is in her right.
The spoon is held in her right hand, but is it held firmly or is it laid over her finger and not very stabilized with her thumb?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's using the tool, but she's not using it quite as effectively or as skillfully. Now her left fingers did what?
Someone used the nice word, explored her food.
Explored the applesauce, and now she puts the apples, well, she tastes it. Okay, so, oh no, she's back to spooning it there, and then there, and then a little more there, and then, oh no, a biscuit. She puts the spoon down and uses two hands to split the biscuit and okay, so I'll pause.
Yeah. One person pointed out she's not even really associating the applesauce with what she tasted when she pulled her left hand up
And so she tasted it, but that wasn't the, oh, dinner, and it didn't trigger a cha-ching. So what does that tell you about this sensation, the gustatory sensation? Even though she put it in there to check it out. So she saw it, she manipulated it a little bit, and she put it here. And there was not a cha-ching moment where when you taste it, you go, oh, applesauce, oh, cool. But she seemed to understand to pull the biscuit apart, and she's moving the stuff around on the plate.
We got some knowledgeable people. They're recognizing maybe her sweet sensation, that being able to taste sweet is actually diminishing.
Yeah, so it wasn't registering as something really sweet or something really savory or something really something. So although she did that, she then went back to a rest position. So if you saw what she did to the food and you didn't really understand much about dementia, what might you think?
Well, we got unfortunately some people that have been doing some work. So they're saying that maybe she has some sequencing issues. But I'm thinking what you're going for is what somebody just said is, well, we might think she's not hungry, but they're also
Right, because everything's still on the plate and she's messed around with a lot of things. And so the most common documentation you will see in the chart is she's playing with her food. And that is sort of accurate. She's manipulating and figuring out the food, but she really truly in that moment doesn't realize it is food. So what she's doing is she's manipulating objects in front of her. So if you go to, which gem state are you thinking you want to go take a look at now? Good job, Barbara. Yeah, huge risk for weight loss. Let's go to our page 3031.
People are thinking maybe amber.
Yeah, so probably sort of amber, it looks like. And let's see, what are things we're going to be concerned about with her? What are some of the issues with an amber? If we don't do anything, to support her intake, what are we likely to see?
someone saying dehydration.
Dehydration, weight loss. Is she going to be as easy to help as Susie was?
No, because a couple of people did point out she has a lot of sensory needs still.
Yeah, she's really busy. So trying to figure out how to support and assist her. So what of all the PAC techniques, what is the PAC technique that has the greatest probability of having some success with her? And this may be where you look under amber and see what helps ambers.
Well, Tiva, a lot of people are saying hand under hand, but someone also mentioned maybe eating with her so she can copy you.
Oh, so maybe we could start with some visual cueing, like, ooh, ah, mm. Why am I starting with a drink? Now, y'all said finger foods right away. You went to finger foods. Why did I start with a drink, with an amber?
They're saying easy to do, hydration.
It's an easier hand skill. So even though, and you want to demonstrate, so holding on to an object like this, or like this, or like that, it's a gross hand movement. So it doesn't take a lot of skill. And I could have mine hand her hers and I go, cheers, and I take a drink. What else? What else am I doing to the mouth?
Some people said it hydrates your mouth and gets the saliva.
Make sure I've got a moist mouth before anything else goes in there, because we know that moisture in the mouth heightens taste. It also improves olfactory if something is moist. We do better if things are moist than if they're dry. So I want to start off with a drink for a couple reasons. Number one, it's easier for her to hold on to, and all she has to do, and we've seen her bring her left hand even to her mouth. So there's a high probability she can do the hand to mouth thing. She just is messing out there at the thing. And by giving it to her in her hand, not on the tabletop, and doing it myself, there's a higher probability of that I might be successful. And then I could hand her a spoon and I could get my spoon. What might I want to do with some of that other stuff? Did somebody say get rid of it?
I got the idea that it's sequencing, Tipa. So I'm wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about that idea of where this we know and people picked up she has trouble sequencing. Why not just cut it all up?
Well, if I cut it all up, what I've done is given her more things to pay attention to. And she was already having a whole bunch of things to pay attention to. So, this idea of the bowl and the spoon, if I want to try a bowl and a spoon, one item, one utensil, one scooping motion. And what I might want to do is see whether or not, if I do that same scooping motion, can she copy or start the scoop, prepare the spoon, and then I do my mouth with a bowl and see what happens. But the other thing I could do is not go with applesauce. I could start with the biscuit that she seemed to be able to take apart, hand her or have her pick up the piece of biscuit, and then try a bite of it, especially since I've moisturized her mouth first. So any other thoughts on this lady? Because I have one more lady I want us to go see because she's a little interesting. And when we look at vision, what she does with vision is really important for us to notice.
One person was wondering whether or not she was right or left-handed.
Yeah. So one of the things we want to think about is if I move the utensil to the other hand, does anything change? So if I switch where the utensil is, because by amber state, take your fingers and do this. Midline crossing can be a little bit of a challenge. It can be definitely difficult to cross the midline of your body. And so people will use what's on that side and use what's on that side and come together here in the middle, but not cross over. So that might be something to explore. Certainly something to explore at least. So now I want to move to our next lady because we are running short on time, as always. Okay, here she is. And you're going to see her eyes in a few minutes. Your mission here is to determine whether this is her dementia or whether she has another sensory condition that might be impacting her abilities. Where's her visual gaze with that eye?
They picked up she's definitely got some vision loss, maybe some blindness or a stroke.
Sort of. You guys are the ballpark. Where's her pupil directed?
Somebody did say macular. I think they were looking maybe
Ah,
she's got macular degeneration.
all right. So if you have macular degeneration and you want to see this plate, you've got to look out here and use your hand to help you, and you've got to catch it in your peripheral. If you try to look down here, the whole plate disappears on you. So what happens is she's looking with her peripheral and using her fingertips to try to figure out what she has here. But she can't look down. As she looks down, she won't be able to see it. So this lady, unfortunately, hard-boiled eggs in a white container on a white plate, on a white placemat, on a white table.
And slippery.
Slippery. So she's got it they're in a bowl, and she has had some biscuit. Now, where do you find, now what's happened in two situations of the three? Where was the biscuit placed? On the plate in relationship to the person.
On the front side.
On the front side. So of all the nutritional value on the plate, there are eggs, there's applesauce in most cases, there's the sausage and the biscuit. Of all of those, what has the best nutritional value? Which has the best, as far as sausage and protein? It's a thing, but which has more flavor to it? Which has the least flavor and the least nutritional value on the whole doggone plate?
Now they're getting it. Biscuit.
Ay, ay, ay. So let's watch Our Lady a bit longer. So she's now, what kind of hand grasp is she using here? And there's a lot of noise in the background, which I could.
They're thinking she's got good fine motor, but gross, or they got gross motor, all fingers.
So now I let her know that she has sausage. And she likes the sausage, but she likes also, and she's done some nice biting. How many bites did she take there of that sausage? How many did you notice she did?
Quite some nibbles, 3 to
She
5.
took quite a few nibbles off the front, but it wasn't a huge bite. She took quite a few nibbles. What has she done with the eggs? Quite a few nibbles off the front. Now she's trying to figure out how to get back to the eggs, although she has the sausage. So what, if anything, could you guys think of if she's an amber? She's still an amber. That means we have a second person who's an amber. So she's an amber, just like our other lady was an amber. But now she has vision that is not actually amber vision. She doesn't have monocular vision. She has just peripheral awareness vision. So what are we thinking might be helpful to this woman?
And with the contrast. Yeah, Rachel, what did you say?
Yeah, there's contrast. People also talked about maybe cutting the eggs up in smaller chunks to be easier to hold on to.
Or what if you made egg salad and put it on a cracker? What if we had something that she could pick up and it wouldn't be so hard to manipulate? What if we use the biscuit and maybe what we did was, do the biscuit in small pieces and make the egg and put it on as that. So this idea of how could we do something? Did she use her second hand at all?
No.
So this is that amber thing where if people are investigating things out in the front with their hands, they might investigate them out. But when it comes to things like eating, frequently we'll see a single hand use because it requires a fair amount of skill to do that wrist manipulation phenomena.
So Teepa, a bunch of people are picking up on this idea of they've got to have color contrast of things.
Yes.
But there was one therapist that put in there, and I can't quite pronounce it. I never know which accent goes on the wrong syllable, but it's stereognosis support. So that's that 3D support. Besides color contrast, can you tell us a little bit about what other types of support that could be?
What could we put rather than a plate with a bowl with something else? What could we do that would really make it easier to have a 3D item that isn't a spherical item that's hard to do? So we're looking at something that could be manipulated or handled. And did she do well with the sausage? So putting things in small pieces, well, that's actually, she's having to possibly do more hunting. But when she ate the sausage, she could nibble off pieces of the sausage. So things like looking at what she could do, again, it all has to be done with one hand though, because she is not spontaneously using two hands at all.
So nobody's saying things like, as you mentioned about this idea, oh, putting egg in, is it possibly a sandwich? But some person said a cup to scoop the food.
Have we seen her use utensils?
No.
She's using what of her fingertips to figure these things out? She doesn't have vision, so she's highly reliant on the feel of things. So she really does need to feel things to figure things. So she's using these pads, these most sensitive pads. She's really checking things out. And she's trying hard to figure things out with her hands. And she's using just tips, a lot of just tips. Besides eating, how often do you think she's stimulated? How often is she overstimulated?
Like I said, it was noisy and she was looking at that. So they're thinking lots.
Yeah. And when things are coming toward her, does she have a sense of how close they're getting and when they're close and who's there and what they're doing with that loss of macular, that center field? Macular means center field area. So she's at high risk for becoming smaller and quieter or louder and more demanding, but we're going to have really struggle with how to help her in a meaningful way.
So Tipa, one of the things is I watch people grapple with that last set of questions. The utility of this book is really like the first step. It really is about that idea of identifying, figuring out truly in depth the way that you do what people can do. And there are in the colored pages, the ones that are all colored of the gem, it starts to talk about some of the issues and maybe some supports. Our next gem workbook is actually going to dive deeper into what we can do to support. But I'm curious, some of the ways that we know that PAC has been successful is if we do. So I'm wondering about a pair of glasses and we take a magic marker and we put ourselves in her world. If you don't have access to a TPAS note or an occupational therapist or a CODA or any other type of therapist, can you guys figure out what she sees and what might work? Is that something we could do, you know?
Yeah, here's your real tricky thing. You have to make your eyes look at the center of the black in your glasses, because what your eyes will try to do is look around the black spot. So you've got to make yourself focus on those center fields so that, and that's one of those tricks, the more you practice it, the easier it gets. You'll start to be able to pick up on moving things around you, but it makes you be, yeah, what is that? Because you can't turn and look, you can just notice it. So if you focus on looking absolutely straight ahead and you take your hands and you move them around the edges, you get a sense of what, but you can't look at them. If you try to look at them, they'll disappear on you. So if I'm looking down and somebody comes in and says, are you finished with your plate? What? And I look up and then all of a sudden my plate's gone. It's like, how frustrating. So, all right. We have time maybe for one more little clip. So here's my question. How helpful are you finding your workbook as you're looking in it now? I mean, you can certainly go through the workbook and do this activity, but what you now have is a resource book, because it says how to connect with an amber, make an emotional connection, use props or objects, consider parallel engagement, talk less, wait longer, take turns. I mean, some of the stuff we put in here, we put in there so that that's the cheat sheet, if you would, on helping you help, whether she has macular degeneration or whether she is simply at that point of her dementia. Ooh, my heavens. So kind of a neat resource to have available. Now, I'm curious as to how many of you are interested in the possibility of having another one of these where we do some other gem states and we do some other kinds of explorations, or this was it, this was enough, that's all you're looking for. So give us some feedback because we are really trying to figure out how can we be helpful? Because we just, we don't want to waste your time, but we do want it to be helpful to you. So while you're doing that and they're watching all that, I'm going to actually show you a couple more little clips just quickly. See if we can figure out who this was. Does she look familiar? Oh, in between times, I had gone back and I cued her and I used hand under hand to get her started. And I moved the applesauce off the plate. And one of the staff members put the applesauce back on the plate because I was having her eat some other things she had on the plate. But now let's see how much, she's made a significant amount of progress. Now I am taking the applesauce dish back off the plate. Pause. And now what I'm going to do is see if very quickly, this is another of my friends, we'll go back to Miss Susie. Let me bring her back. Oh, here we are. So what's happened in the in-between time while we were off doing other things? What do you notice? Because I left her alone after I got her set up. What do you notice here?
So I noticed that there's a fork in her hand. Some juice is gone. She's eating more.
Yep. So she actually, let me get to the very beginning here. Let's see how this works. Let's try this. See if we can get this to, hopefully I didn't mess this up.
Someone else said they didn't see the bowl on her plate. Looks like she's eating a little bit more.
She's eaten a little more. There's about half the sausage gone, about 3/4 of the biscuit is gone. She's made some progress. It is sort of getting a little better.
Oh, Patricia said her left hand was a little bit more released.
Oh, her left hand was up a little out and sort of present. Huh. Okay. So maybe we were making some progress. Anything else that you noticed?
Latifa, somebody just asked, how would she fare if staff just fed her?
Oh, she didn't eat. She would close her mouth and not really do very well because guess how fast food would come? What do you think? How fast would the food come in?
Fast.
Too fast. Because what did you notice about her chewing pattern? Is that a really quick chewing pattern? Or was it a really slow chewing pattern?
Very slow.
Very slow. So classically, one of the problems is people want to feed people so they can eat faster. And the problem is if you load up her mouth more, she might open her mouth and let you put the food in. The problem is if she keeps opening her mouth and putting the food in, what you're going to end up with is a lot of food in her mouth and lots of pocketing. So here's the final little video piece. I'm going to see if I can show you. Here we go. So who's doing the manipulative skill with the sausage? And who's back to using the 2 fingers? Oh, now she used her third one to get. Whoa, what are you watching there? What are you watching right there in front of your eyes?
Teresa's, give that to me.
Yeah, but it's actually problems with depth perception. She's trying to find the fork. She's trying to figure out where that fork is. And then she gets it. And she's chewing.
Boy, I can't even imagine how long a staff member would sit there like patient young Tipa.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tipa has some other things to look at and she's figuring out. So Susie, you know, she did what I loaded. Who loaded the fork for her? And what Susie can't do is she can't load the fork very well and then bring it to her mouth. She needs a little more assistance. Once I load it up, she can bring it to her mouth, but that sequence, load the fork and bring it to your mouth. Let's see what she does now though. Oh, look. We've been rehearsing. She's been rehearsing. Oh, she's going to try cutting. Well, she missed the item, but now she spears it. And now she eats it. Wow. So what could we document? Progression during a meal. What will happen at the next meal? Start over. Wow. So I hope today has been an exploration of the GEMS workbook. Got you really looking at it and investigating it. We've got lots of quizzes. We've got actually other videos that we did. These are ones that I have from, it's an old video. It's called Accepting the Challenge. Did you see how young I was? That was 20 years ago, just so we're clear.
You know,
Made lots of mistakes. I've learned things in 20 years.
I want to, if I could, alert people to that page 36.
Yes.
So the videos that Tipa chose today were ones that were they were novel. They were from a different video. Some of you guys even have this old purple video. But the videos that she's got here on your page 36, that if you got the workbook, you have access to these. Let us know if you have any issues finding it. But this is in your member menu. So those will be videos that she has done specially for this workbook. So you and maybe even your staff or other family members could go through and do exactly what Tipa did here with the guided workbook, the quizzes. And please, guys, on these pages where clearly you got to write, go ahead and make those copies. Definitely.
I mean, because that's just where you're, that's not our words, that's yours. So doing that. And so if you're doing a training, absolutely, because we want you to share this news out there. We want folks to actually understand who they're working with and help them in ways that make sense, not do things that cause distress. So thank you all so very much for being here. And I'm assuming my crew got feedback. So we'll see what else we put together and do. But what we want to make sure of is that the resource that we give you and the support of the resource we give you is going to help you do what you do even better. Spreading it out there, that's what we're about. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Emilio. Thanks, Beth and Rachel, and all of you. So appreciate it.